When I was 49, I broke 2 ribs on the left side of my body, and there was no apparent reason for why I did it. I hadn't had a fall, I hadn't bumped into anything, hadn't had a car crash, nothing, but I'd broken 2 ribs. So I went to the doctors and said, I'm in a lot of pain. Why? Have I broken ribs or not? So today's video, I'd like to talk about my journey with osteoporosis, how I found out that I'd got osteoporosis and the steps I had to go through in order to get that diagnosis, what I was told I could and couldn't do, what I do on a daily basis to manage my pain levels, the medication I take, finally what I'm doing as I head towards 60 to try and stop it getting worse than it already is. So make yourself a nice cup of tea or coffee, whatever you like to drink, and let's start. So yes, I'm 59 now. So 10 years ago was when I broke my 2 ribs. I was in an awful lot of pain, as broken ribs do cause you. Coughing, laughing, trying to do my bra up, everything, every bit of movement was really, really painful. And I got a physical job, so I couldn't work, which meant I didn't earn any money because I was self-employed, as I still am. So I had to take time off work. When I went to the doctors, they said, oh yes, you've probably broken your ribs, but there's nothing we can do about it. We don't bother x-raying broken ribs because we can't put them in plaster or anything. So rest, take ibuprofen, and they will heal in time. So I thought, oh, great, that's really helpful, isn't it? I live on my own. I have to carry on doing all the things I do in my life whilst being in excruciating pain. Anyway, you have to suck it up, don't you, and get on with it. So I was off work for about 6 to 8 weeks and I still wasn't feeling any better. So I went back to a doctor and I saw a different GP this time. And he said the same old thing. Oh, well, sometimes it takes longer to heal than other times. You just have to carry on doing what you're doing. Make sure you don't aggravate the ribs and the chest, which is difficult when you're breathing because it's going in and out like this anyway, isn't it? So fobbed off again, basically. Carried on for another few months, still in pain, still not healed, still giving me a lot of pain. And eventually, after I turned 50, so about 8 months after I broke my ribs, I was still in pain, still nothing had been done about it. And I thought, right, I'm going to have to really advocate for myself here because it can only be fobbed off so many times. And it was affecting my financial life, my social life, everything. I couldn't work. And when I went back to work, it just sort of aggravated it and set me back a few weeks. Yeah, not a good situation. So after about the 8 months, I decided to go back to a doctor again. And I got seen by a very, very newly qualified GP who actually took me seriously and said, this has been going on a long time. I think there's something going on here. I think we need to do further investigations. So hallelujah, finally somebody's, prepared to help me instead of just keep saying rest, rest, rest. So I was very pleased to get some help after so long. I was sent to the hospital for x-rays so that they could see my rib cage and my spine. I was called back into the hospital, into the GPs a couple of weeks later to get the result. And I saw the same young doctor again. And he said, a little bit of a problem. We think there's a shadow on the bones in your ribs, which could be a sign of bone cancer. So that wasn't what I was expecting at all and came as a real shock. Yeah, what do you do when you're told that? So I was told that I would be referred for an MRI scan to see whether it was actually bone cancer or not. I had to wait 4 weeks for that appointment, and it was a very scary, lonely time. And I didn't know kind of what to do with myself during that time. You think, well, there's nothing I can do about it in the run up to the MRI scan, so stop worrying about it. But anybody who's been told they might have cancer, you can't stop thinking about it. With the best will in the world, it's just on your mind all the time. So the day arrived when I had my appointment, and I was living in Poole at the time. I went to Poole Hospital, and they had a big lorry with the MRI scan in it in the car park of the hospital. So I went in there, got undressed, lay down, and they put the sort of scanner thing going over you, which is a bit claustrophobic, but it wasn't too bad. So I had the scan, and then I had to wait about a week for the results. And luckily, they said, no, it's not bone cancer. It's just an unfortunate angle when you had the X-ray. So I'm like, oh my God, I've been worried sick for a month because the prognosis for bone cancer is not good. And I didn't want to tell my son at this stage until I knew what was going on. Didn't want to worry him unnecessarily. Anyway, so it turned out it wasn't bone cancer. Thank goodness for that. So what is causing it then? So they sent me back to the GP. GP referred me for a DEXA scan, which I can't remember what it stands for. It's imaging, a DEXA scan basically, which scans your whole body and you can see what the structure of your skeleton's like. Now, bearing in mind I broke my ribs when I was 49, that's quite young really to be going through with DEXA scans. Certainly in the UK, you never get offered a DEXA scan unless you have fractures that have been caused by nothing in particular. There's no fall, there's no accident. So I got moved in, I got the DEXA scan done, I got the results, and I had quite severe osteoporosis in my spine and my rib cage, hence the broken ribs. And I had osteopenia in my hips. And osteopenia is the stage before osteoporosis. So you're starting to get changes in the structure of the bone, but it hasn't, gone like Swiss cheese at that point. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock to get the diagnosis of osteoporosis, especially because I was still pre-menopause, in perimenopause. But after thinking I might have bone cancer, it was actually a relief. So in any other situation, I think I might have been quite shocked, but it was a relief that that's what it was and something could be done about it. So I went to put in touch with the rheumatology who deals with bones and things like that. And she looked at my scores and said, yes, definitely osteoporosis in the spine. You've also had a fracture in your spine, which is called a compression fracture, which basically means that it's collapsed in on itself, the sort of vertebrae, which causes a lot of pain, as you can imagine. So I was told not to use a rowing machine at the gym because that sort of flick-flack action would make my spine problems a lot worse. I wasn't allowed to go horse riding, which I wasn't planning to do anyway, but good to know. And I wasn't supposed to sit for more than an hour at a time without getting up and walking around and, stretching my spine out because it compresses on itself and that's going to cause more issues. The thing with my hips was, I suppose, maybe that wasn't as advanced because I had done a lot of walking. I belonged to a walking group and we went out walking every weekend and did sort of 10, 12 mile walks. So I suppose I'd had that impact on those bones more so than my spine. So I got prescribed some tablets that I had to take every day. You're supposed to take them when you wake up and then not eat or drink anything for an hour. And that proved to be a real problem because obviously my age, I was working, and yeah, it was just really not great. But I took them anyway, persevered. I got sent to like a support group in the hospital for people with osteoporosis. There weren't any men there, but men can get osteoporosis, obviously, but not as many will do as women. And when you're the other side of the menopause, you're post-menopause, your likelihood of getting osteoporosis is a lot higher. So if you don't know, what happens with osteoporosis is you've got a system in your body where you've got a thing called osteoblasts and osteoclasts. Now the osteoblasts lay down new bone, and the osteoclasts come along and gobble up the old bone. And these two of activities are supposed to go along at basically the same rate. So you lay down new and you clear out old, and then your bones stay nice and healthy. But with osteoporosis, the gobbling up ones, the osteoclasts, work faster than the osteoblasts that lay down the new bone, which is why you get this sort of holy, lacy-like structure, and you get the weakness, fragility in the bones. So the tablets that I was put on were supposed to slow down the gobbling up of the old bone and try and bring it back in line with laying down of new bone. Fine, let's carry on, see what happens. I was told to eat lots of calcium. I went to this support group, and I was the youngest by about 20 years, which didn't do me, my ego, much good. I'm sort of thinking, oh my God, you know, I'm already geriatric. No offence to anybody who's 70, I'm heading that way now. But at the time, it was, I don't know, a bit of a shock to the system that I was there with all these women who were a lot older, you know, more of an age that you would expect them to be in an osteoporosis group. So we talked about having more calcium and all this sort of thing. And I was also prescribed daily tablets to take, supplements. I was supposed to take 2 a day, and they're calcium and vitamin D. Because in order to have healthy bones, you need vitamin D, but you also need magnesium. So the 3 things together, you know, help your bones stay strong. So I was given this supplement. I don't know why they didn't give me a magnesium supplement. Maybe they don't for anybody, but that was never mentioned. I found that out, you know, in the sort of intervening 10 years. But anyway, I got this calcium and vitamin D supplement to take twice a day. So I was sort of tootled on. I did get quite a lot of pain from my ribs, and I still do. They haven't broken again, but they hurt. And my spine's very painful. Pretty much every day I'm in pain with my spine. It's just the severity that changes. So some days it's quite debilitating and I have to cancel work. Other days I can sort of manage it with heat pads and painkillers, but it never goes away. And then, what was it? About 7 years ago, I moved up to the Midlands where I live now. And I decided, because I was changing health authority, that it would be a good idea to see about changing my medication, because I really wasn't getting on with these tablets. I went to my new GP and said, I've heard about this treatment where you have injections twice a year. Can I be put on it? And they wouldn't put me on it in Poole. So I expected to be told I wasn't allowed to go on it up here as well. But I thought it was worth a try because I was a new patient and I didn't know how they operate up here. They have different policies, don't they, in different areas. I asked for that and I was sent along to a hospital in a different town and saw the rheumatology consultant who said, yes, we're prepared to put you on it. And I started these injections twice a year. It's called denosumab. And basically you have injection. I normally have it in my thigh. 2 weeks before the injection, I have to go for a blood test to check that all my markers are fine, that I don't have raised levels of inflammatory markers. And then those results will be sent through to the hospital I have to go to. And if they're all right, I can carry on and get my injection. And then 2 weeks after the injection, I have to have another blood test to check that my calcium levels and vitamin D levels and everything are okay and within the range that they're looking for. So it's a bit of a faff, but it's only twice a year. So that's really good. I'm 10 years on from breaking my ribs now and about 9 years from having my DEXA scan. And I've still not had another DEXA scan. Now, you're supposed to be given one every 5 years. So obviously I've slipped through the net on that one. But I'm due my next injection in June this year. So when I go there, I'm going to ask, when am I going to be having another DEXA scan to see whether this treatment's working? Because if it's not working, there's no point me carrying on with it. So I do that twice a year. That's fine. I've still got my calcium and vitamin D tablets to take. I try and get outside as much as I can to get natural vitamin D. And I try to walk a lot so that I keep active. It makes it all worse if you do nothing and you're sedentary. You have to keep moving even if you're in pain. So I do that. It does have an effect on me because of the sort of pain. When I first got told I had osteoporosis, I was very nervous about doing lots of things because I kept thinking, oh my God, will this break this bone or that bone? But I have tripped a few times and sort of gone down on my hands, and although I've sprained the wrist that I fell on, I haven't broken it. So whether that's just luck or whether the medication's working, I don't know, and I won't know until they give me a DEXA scan. So that's the medication I'm on at the moment. Going forwards, I've decided that I need to take better care of myself, diet-wise and physically with exercise. So I've started to increase the amount of protein I have in my diet so that I can retain muscle mass better. And alongside that, starting like a strength training program. And I bought some equipment to use in my spare room, and I can build up the weights and grow stronger muscles, because if your muscles are strong, you're less likely to fall, therefore you're less likely to fracture a bone. So it's very important to work on balance and muscle building and general health, so that your body's getting the nutrition it needs, but it's also getting the physical stimulation that it needs. So I bought a trampoline, which I've been working on every morning for 5-6 minutes. I'm trying to work up to 10, but it's quite tiring. And that's very good for balance, but also for the lymphatic system and just general cardio health. And I'm just writing a plan at the moment for myself to start this strength training so that I can build more muscle, retain what little bit of muscle I've already got, and therefore hopefully prevent falls in the future. So that's the plan going forwards. I'm very aware that as I get older, I'm more likely to have falls. So I want to get in ahead of that and try to be the healthiest I can. So we'll see how that goes. And you'll see in my next video, which is my April low spend wrap up, what equipment I've bought, how much I've spent on it, and spoiler alert, the budget did not go well in April, and I'm not sure I want to make the video, but I will, because as my channel's called Rachel for Real, I have to give you the good, the bad and the ugly. So that's it. That's my journey with osteoporosis so far. I was diagnosed relatively young, and it's something I've had to learn to live with. The more research I've done myself, I've found ways to manage the pain. I've now found out post-menopause that I need more protein, that I need to do strength training. So if you're in perimenopause or you're even younger, please research this and start, taking steps now before you actually get fractures and you find out you've got osteoporosis. Do the work first. Generally, until you have a fracture, you don't know you've got osteoporosis because there's no symptoms. You don't feel ill or anything like that. So it's not until you have a fracture that you find out that's what it is. So don't assume that because you feel all right, that you are all right. Research having more protein, research doing some strength training, not just cardio exercise. And hopefully you won't have to go through what I've gone through. But that's my journey. Let me know if you've got issues with your bones, whether you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, how you're trying to slow the process down. You know, in my case, it's never going to go away, but hopefully we can slow the process down enough that it doesn't get worse. And therefore, if I take care of myself, you know, I should be okay. And that's the aim, isn't it? To be okay and to be healthy. Yeah, thank you very much for listening. I will see you next week when I make another video. Bye for now.